All right. You are watching the Weddings and the Smokies podcast. This series is designed to help newly engaged couples with the daunting task of planning your wedding day. On today's episode, we're going to discuss a very important topic, the legal procedure of getting married with a properly ordained minister. This may seem like a weird topic, but for a destination area like the Smoky Mountains, the law can be a bit unclear. We hope to fix that in today's episode, so let's begin.
Thank you. And whether you're a newly engaged couple looking for tips or a wedding vendor seeking out the latest and greatest information, that's what this Weddings in the Smoky podcast is all about. So we hope that you'll be engaged and enjoy the information that we're going to cover in today's podcast. My name is Ron Crivellone, DJ with a company called Smoky Mountain Sounds. I'm also the president of the Smoky Mountain Wedding Association. And co-hosting with me today is wedding videographer, Jake Shick Productions, Mr. Jake Shick.
Hello, hello.
Hello.
Glad to be a part of today's show. Today's topic, I believe, is going to clear up so much confusion that has transpired between couples and their wedding officiants. In recent years, couples who have thought to be legally married are now finding out that they're legally not. This is because their wedding officiants are either not properly ordained or the couple didn't properly sign their documents for the state of Tennessee. Ron knows a lot more about this topic than I do. He's actually a wedding officiant himself as well, on top of being a president and running the DJ company. And so I'm going to kind of let you take it from here, and I'll just ask questions if there's anything that seems a little unclear to me.
I appreciate that. Before we get on that, though, I want to sit here and say thank you to so far this year. We've had quite a few great meetings to focus on education and network with the Smoky Mountain Wedding Association. And as you're viewing this podcast, if you want to know more about it, you can go to our website, smwba.com, or Smoky, SMOKY, mountainweddingassociation.com to find out about us. But I do want to say we just recently had a meeting. We did it at a place called Venue at Wonder Meadows, which is up in Wares Valley off of Wares Valley Road. It is an overnight rental place that has a pavilion that they've converted. It used to be a horse stable, but it is a pavilion they've converted into an outdoor wedding venue, and it's a beautiful area. And there's overnight properties available on there for accommodations, as well as they have a huge pond with beautiful scenery, great place to have the ceremony, then have the reception there in the pavilion. So that is a company called Staylaw, but again, it's the Venue at Wonder Meadows. And I want to say thank you to them for hosting everything. It was beautiful. We had a great day, a great evening of networking, and just wonderful weather that made it all possible. So again, thank you to one of those members. So officiating. So many years ago, I decided to get ordained simply because I had experiences to where, as a DJ, it was either the officiant was running late, got lost, or just had a bad attitude when they got there. And so I decided to do some homework on knowing that Tennessee had some interesting laws when it comes to ordination laws. And so I got my ordination from a site called National Association of Christian Ministers, which I did many years. So I am technically ordained in Tennessee and North Carolina to perform weddings. Now let me explain what that means. And that means that I am not necessarily affiliated with a church per se, but I got ordained strictly to perform wedding ceremonies only in the state of Tennessee. Back in the 90s, I guess you could say, as the state was growing in weddings, especially in our area being Sevier County, back at that time, Sevier County was known as a very highly driven chapel area destination for people to get married. Back at that time, I think you had over 50 wedding chapels in the Sevier County area.
Wow.
Yes. So it was a highly driven market for weddings. And at that time, a lot of people, I would say businesses, they built the chapel, they either did the ceremonies themselves or hired someone to be their officiant and did the ceremonies. And we're talking thousands of ceremonies per year. I think at one time Sevier County performed between 20 to 25,000 weddings a year.
That is insane.
That's very crazy. But of course, as times change, so did the market. So you started to get either hotels that came up in the area or cabins and a few venues at that time. So the market started to change probably early 2000s. And by mid 2000s, I believe 2006, 2007, when the housing market crashed, is when the businesses started to change in the area. So
that was during the recession?
Yes. So, the 50 or so chapels you had kind of slowly started dwindling down. And so by 2010, I think we had maybe 15 to 20 chapels. Now, in the area in Sevier County, I believe you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, maybe 10 total. So they still equate to, a couple thousand marriages that take place in Sevier County, but now you have many cabins, venues, as well as hotels that can host weddings. So back at that time, Sevier County is known as an ultra-conservative county, and I can say that because I've been in Sevier County now for 16 years. But because of that, they were not too keen on people just getting ordained online to marry people. They wanted you to go through the whole church, go to school for ordination, priesthood, I guess you could say, where you would be affiliated with a church to where you can conduct sermons and everything. So they weren't too keen on that. And then it kind of, I guess you could say it stayed that way for a while. And then in 2010, you started to see a shift where people thought, this is something that I could do, and how do I look online to get ordained simply just to perform ceremonies where I'm not affiliated with a church per se, but I feel it my passion to do that. And so you had companies that offered that service, and a couple of those companies, and I'll go ahead and name them. You have Universal Life Church, you have American Marriage Ministries, you have a National Association of Christian Ministers, and I believe there's one other. Tennessee, and I don't remember the year, maybe 2014, 2015, decided to crack down on online ordination because they felt it was taking away from the purpose of the passion. I think the state law says like being a giver of souls, of something you're passionate about, that they felt that just going online and signing a piece of paper didn't necessarily make you ordained in their eyes. So around 2015, 2016, the state decided to come up with an idea of that they would outlaw online ordination, and that tried to pass the House. And so there was a particular organization that they were going after. I won't name the company, but I'll do the letters of ULC. And
it's funny.
Yes, thank you. And basically what it was they were trying to make it to where people had a little more passion to get ordained instead of just getting ordained to perform a friend's ceremony and so on. So the state went forward with their suit against this company, basically stating that anyone who was ordained through this company, their ordination would not be recognized, and therefore anyone who married them, that marriage would not be recognized. And I think what started the whole thing was, I think in 2014 or 2015, a couple was going through divorce court in Knox County, and somehow the information came out that they had been married through Universal Life Church. When the judge found that out, he said, well, since this state doesn't recognize Universal Life Church, there's no grounds because in our eyes you weren't legally married.
Wait, so I guess clarify for me, how come they didn't validate Universal Life Church's properly ordained.
The stories I get from the Attorney General of Tennessee was because of ULC recognizing everything, like every religion, every this, it didn't fit along the confines of how Tennessee thought it should be recognized. And so they specifically targeted that organization. I don't agree with that, but that's along the lines of what they did. So when it came to light about this, that's when Tennessee became more aggressive on not recognizing that organization nor recognizing anyone who had been ordained through them. So it went to court, and an appellate judge in Nashville became this big court case. It really kind of became a gray area of, what are they going to recognize? They tried to pass a law that kind of, I want to say, forbidden, or that Tennessee would not recognize any online ordination. Our local legislative got involved because they knew that Sevier County is a big wedding area. Mm-hmm. And so when I started talking to local legislature, one of the questions I asked was, so how is it that more and more people are getting degrees online because they're taking classes from home? How is that considered okay to where you can take classes online, you can graduate and get a degree online, have it sent to you like you graduated as if you went to that university, but yet you can't get ordained online because it's not legal? They couldn't answer that question. So as time went by, it stood out there, and some courthouses in the area opted not to accept marriage licenses, which by law they couldn't do that, but they opted to do that. And I think finally in 21 or 22?
Pretty recent, right?
That the state of Tennessee lost the lawsuit and said they could not discriminate against any organization for that. Wow. So that meant that anyone who was ordained through ULC was as legal as anyone else, and they could perform marriages, and then the state had to accept that as an ordination.
So was there a time then before 2022 where ULC was not being accepted, and so people who were getting married weren't considered married under them?
There was definitely some pushback from some courthouses. I won't mention the courthouses, but there was some pushback. But all in all, here's what I've always said. Whenever you get a marriage license, the marriage license gets your specific information on, where were you born, where you currently live, family members, immediate family members, everything to check the boxes to make sure you're legal to get married in the state. If you go through all that information and the courthouse determines, yes, you can get married legally, then to me, that's where that should stop. The marriage license only asks you for your ordination. It doesn't ask you how you were ordained. So therefore, I've always felt the courthouses don't have the right to ask that question.
Yeah.
So I think it caused issues in a couple counties, but the biggest issues I feel it has caused is people not understanding the laws and not wanting it to be, how okay is it that maybe the state of Florida or the state of Illinois or the state of Illinois or whatever state you come from easily accepts these, but then Tennessee doesn't. And it makes it tough because you have those couples who want a friend or their father who's been in ministry or whatever. And so even it calls into question, would I be legal to marry them in the state of Tennessee? So since that law was overruled where ULC won, then I guess it went back to the original law that said it still wanted it to be a giver of souls of someone who had a passion for ministry in order to be able to be qualified to marry someone in the state. The way that I've looked at it since that ruling has come about is that, in my eyes, that since on the marriage license it only asks you what your ordination would be, meaning are you considered a pastor, are you considered a reverend, what exactly is your title considered? And that's the only question that it asks. It doesn't ask you who you got ordained by. Then I believe that the courthouse should accept the license with no issue. That's just what I believe. There are some cases to where there's still a gray area of what people think is legal and what's not legal. And in my research, in my talking with the Attorney General for the state of Tennessee, how I look at it this way is that ordination or online ordination is legal. Even if you're doing it just to marry a friend, a cousin, relative, then you should have the right to be able to do that and perform that ceremony for that couple. There's still debate about it. What I would like to see is a clear, defined law put into place as online ordination is accepted in the state of Tennessee with, maybe a set of questions that you would have to answer, and the questions being, what's your purpose for doing this? Do you plan on performing other ceremonies, or is this time one and done type of thing? My biggest thing with doing that is simple. We're in a destination area, and I think that anyone who gets in the business to officiate weddings needs to educate themselves not only on what the laws are, but also educate themselves on how big of a deal this is. You are being a part of someone's wedding day. So, like with any business that you get into, what's your purpose for doing it? Do you truly want to spread, the joy, the excitement, the commitment of being with that couple to help them celebrate their unity together? Or is this just a side hustle of where you're just trying to pick up some quick cash?
So then a quick question then. Let's say if somebody was from North Carolina or from Florida and they wanted to come to Tennessee to get married. They want their best friend to officiate their ceremony. What should they do legally to make sure that they are having a legal marriage? Do they need to be considered legally married in the state of North Carolina or Florida?
That's a great question.
Or do they go to Tennessee and deal with it there?
That is a great question. So there is, I think there is your Tennessee website that has the answers to a bunch of these questions. Now, here's some things that have changed in the last few years too, which I've always thought were interesting based upon how they're tough on online ordinations. So we know for a while now that city commissioners or pretty much any elected official in the state of Tennessee can perform weddings. And that we also know, I think it was either last year or before, now any notaries can perform ceremonies or weddings in the state of Tennessee. So with that being said, why we still have an issue or a gray line with online ordination, that beats me. My biggest take on that would be just do your homework. Either call the courthouse that's closest to where you're going to get married and see if they can answer the questions for you, or if there's a special or specific website with wording that you need to look at to make sure. I always, whenever I get the chance to talk with couples, I always say to them, look at American Marriage Ministries, look at a National Association of Christian Ministers, if they want a family member, friend, or whoever to perform the ceremony. That's what I always take at. And again, we go back to ULC. That is, they can get ordained through that site as well. Just ask the questions. Again, I always say, if you're getting married in the Pigeon Forge, Gatlinburg, Sevierville area, then, reach out to Sevier County Courthouse. If they can't answer, see is there a website that I can go to take a look, because you really want to make sure that you are getting this verified. I've not heard any instances in the last couple years to where someone's marriage was not verified because of someone's credentials. Now, one thing I will say that I've come across is that if you are coming from out of state, then you do need to get the marriage license in the state that you are getting married in. So,
there we go. Okay,
so like if you're coming from Kentucky or Florida or Georgia or Alabama or wherever you're coming from, make sure you get the license in the state that you are getting married in. And in the state of Tennessee, you don't necessarily have to get it in the county that you're getting married in as long as you get it in the state. So if you're driving through way of Nashville or Chattanooga or wherever that might be, anywhere in the state of Tennessee, that is fine. Because what will happen is you can put it back, in the mail, and it'll go back to that courthouse. Then it goes to Nashville, and then you'll get your certificates.
Now, this might be a question that might be a weird one, and you just tell me.
Sure.
Because I think I've heard, too, that if you do get married in the state of Tennessee, they will ask you whether or not you did any premarital counseling or whatnot, and if you do, they give you a discount potentially on your license. I know that they do that in Knoxville. I don't know if they do that in Sevierville. And if officiants offer,
That's a great question.
questions.
I'm not sure. They might, because I do know quite a few officiants who do offer that. One thing I do know is that, so if you're a local resident to Tennessee or one of the counties, that you usually pay about $100.
Yep.
But if your destination, then it's like $40 and some change.
Oh, so they're already getting a good discount.
Yeah, so like if you go to Sevier County, if you're coming from Alabama to get married and you can pre-register online, it's like $40 and some change. But like when Ellen and I got married years ago, it was like $100. I'm like, really? As she looks at me going, I'm not worth $100. I said, yes, you are. But my whole purpose of this is this. And again, anyone who's viewing this when we post it on Weddings in the Smokies or the Smoky Mountain Wedding Association page, please feel free to answer or ask us any questions, message us. Yeah. And I'll be glad to ask you or answer anything I can. This is research that I've done over the few years. This is also the number of interviews that I've conducted, not only with news stations, but also the Attorney General and other senators who have tried to pass laws or put things in place of this is what they're looking to do. Again, I say this, me personally, I'd love to sit down with a senator or someone in the state of Tennessee and actually put a viable law together that recognizes online ordination. So therefore, there are no gray areas, and it makes it a much more simpler process for couples to get married and for them to be able to choose whom they would like to marry them. That is my personal view on this. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of things that you can do to help vet a professional. There's a lot of things that you can do to help make that a much more memorable experience. And again, we would love to help answer those questions or help guide you in any way to do that. Also, I recommend, too, that if you are planning a destination wedding when it comes to officiating, be sure to pre-register online. Most counties will let you do that. And therefore, that way, when you do come into town, whether it be that week or a couple days before, just go by the courthouse, verify all the information, and you're good to go. Tennessee is probably, in my opinion, one of the easiest states to get a marriage license in compared to like in Illinois or something else, which I think still requires a blood test.
A blood test, really?
I think they still require a blood test. But Tennessee, because we are a destination wedding, because we do get a lot of elopements, a lot of times it's just that couple. So also something to note with that is that if you are qualified, meaning that if you are elected official or notary who can marry people in the state of Tennessee, they are also considered a witness. And that is because Tennessee gets a lot of elopements where it's just the couple and the officiant. So therefore, the officiant is also the witness. Perfect. So therefore, you don't need another person to be there as a witness to that.
But if you are coming to the state of Tennessee to get married, you have to be registered with the state of Tennessee.
Yes, you have to get the license in the same state that you are getting married in. And I say that because it was about 1.5 years ago, I was asked to do a wedding. I won't give a location, but when I got there, I performed the wedding to find out the couple brought their license from another state. And
couldn't sign their state.
I signed it hoping that, I signed it. And then I think what ended up happening was the courthouse called me and asked me what my credentials were and said, okay, no problem, we'll accept it. Because each state is different on what they'll accept. So I can't stress enough that if you're coming to Tennessee to get married, make sure you register in the state of Tennessee for your marriage license.
Perfect. And then I guess a quick last question. Once they have their marriage license signed, what do you turn it in for them, or how does that go? So
there are a couple different ways you can do it. Some couples, want to turn it in themselves because if they do that, depending on the courthouse, they can get their certificates right then and there. Of course, that also depends on the time of the year. If it's a busy time of the year,
October.
well, even like May or something, you'll turn it in and they'll say, we're going to have to send you your certificates because it's just a busy time. So a lot of times your officiant will turn it in for you. And the officiant usually gets 3 days after they perform the ceremony, turn it into the courthouse. And then I usually tell couples, give it 2 to 3 weeks, depending on how busy they are. Like right now, May is a huge wedding month, so it could be 2 to 4 weeks, depending on how many licenses, are coming in at one given day or what have you. So if you want to turn it in yourself, you can. If you want to mail it in yourself, you can. Just expect delays. But most of the time, especially in my experience, after the ceremony, I will sign the license. I will take it with me. I will turn it in the courthouse the next business day available. And then usually from that point, it's 2 to 3 weeks for you to get your certificates.
Perfect. Awesome.
So,
well, I really love this episode, and what I want a lot of our couples to know is, like, there's a lot that goes into wedding planning, and you can look into just some of the basic things like, oh, I need to get the venue, I need to get the photographer, the DJ, the photographer, but there's things like officiating that can kind of go over people's heads really easily and not realize how big of a deal it is. And so I definitely will encourage our couples that as you're looking for your officiants and as you're trying to get yourself legally married, review this podcast episode multiple times over and go on to the Tennessee's government's website so they'll figure these things out, because the last thing that you want to have happen is you have your wedding day, you go on your honeymoon, and you find out that all the legal paperwork was incorrect and it's not right, and you want to go off finishing your wedding day knowing that everything's all taken care of for you. It's less stress, it makes the rest of your trip more enjoyable, and it'll help prevent there from all the confusion that there's been, especially in these last few years with the Tennessee courts and all the online ordination and stuff like that. So thank you, Ron, for sharing all that information. If you are looking for an officiant in the Smoky Mountain Wedding Association, Ron Crivellone definitely does that as well, and he can also perform your DJ services as well. So you kind of get an all-in-one package right there.
And again, I can't stress this enough. As once we put the podcast out there, if you have any questions, feel free to message us. Again, you want to vet any wedding officiant. Can they personalize it for you? What will they help you with in the planning process of all that? Because you want this to be as comfortable and easy as a process as it can be, because of the importance of what they're performing for you. So again, it comes back to doing your homework and just making sure. And there's a lot of information out there, and it can be overwhelming. But again, the Wedding Association wants to be your resource for helping you find those answers. And so we would definitely love to talk with you. And, this is why we put these podcast segments together, is for this very purpose, to get the right information out there, and hopefully that it can be useful in your destination planning.
That's exactly right. And if you want to follow us on social media, you can follow us on Instagram. You just look for the tag name Smoky Mountain Weddings, or you can join our Facebook group called Weddings in the Smokies. Otherwise, I think that should be it for today's episode. Again, my name is Jake Shick, wedding videographer here in East Tennessee.
And I'm Ron Crivellone with Smoky Mountain Sounds. Again, we appreciate you for tuning in, and thank you so much, and we'll see you on our next episode of Weddings in the Smokies.
Bye for now.